If you were told to just walk more for your leg circulation, I need you to hear this before you do anything else. Walking helps. I am not here to tell you to stop. But there is one movement, one very specific one, that does something walking simply cannot do for the blood sitting in your lower legs. And almost nobody over 60 has ever been shown it properly. I have spent years working with patients on exactly this problem. People who walked every morning without fail. People who kept their legs up on a pillow every single night. People who wore the compression socks, who drank their water, who did everything they were told. And they still came in with cold feet, ankles swollen tight by 6 in the evening, a dull ache climbing up the back of the calf, and that light-headed wobble when they stood up too fast from the couch. They were not lazy, they were not doing anything wrong, they were simply missing the one piece nobody had ever explained to them. So let's actually explain it, because poor circulation after 60 is not just an uncomfortable inconvenience you learn to live with. When blood stops moving properly through the legs, small cuts stop healing the way they used to. A tiny scrape can turn into something serious. In the worst cases, people lose toes. Or worse, it is also one of the earliest signs that something bigger is going on with the heart and the arteries. A meaningful share of adults over 70 have some degree of narrowing in the arteries feeding their legs, and most of them have no idea yet. So stay with me for a couple of minutes, because the reason your feet are cold tonight has almost nothing to do with your step count. It comes down to one muscle most people never think about at all. That muscle is your calf. Some doctors call it your second heart, and that is not just a nice phrase. Every time your calf muscle tightens, it squeezes the deep veins buried inside your lower leg and physically drives blood upward against gravity back toward your chest. Inside those veins are tiny one-way valves that snap shut behind each squeeze so the blood cannot slide back down. That is the pump. That is your second heart doing its job every time you use it properly. Here is the problem. After 60, that pump starts losing power. Vein walls get thinner and looser. The little valves start leaking. The calf muscle itself shrinks if you spend most of the day sitting, which almost everyone does. So the pump slows down. Blood starts pooling at the ankles instead of climbing back up. Swelling gets worse. Feet get colder. The skin down there starts running short on oxygen. And the less you move, the weaker that pump gets, which means you move even less. It is a slow spiral, and a lot of people are somewhere on it without ever realizing. Now here is the actual good news. Fixing this has almost nothing to do with your step count. It comes down to a small handful of specific movements that physically force blood back up where it belongs. I am going to walk you through 5 of them, counting down from 5 to 1, and each one builds on the last. I am saving the single most effective one for the very end, the one movement that vascular rehab programs rely on more than anything else to restore circulation after 60. If you only remember one thing from this video, it will be number 1, but you will understand it far better once we build up to it. Before we start, I want to tell you about a patient I will call Margaret, a composite of people I have cared for, so no one's privacy is involved here. Margaret was 72. Still sharp, still driving herself to church on Sundays, still chasing her grandkids around the yard. But her feet were cold every night, even in July, and by dinner time her ankles looked like bread dough. She had walked a mile a day for 3 years straight and was quietly devastated that nothing was improving. Keep her in mind, because what finally worked for her is the whole point of this video. Let's start the countdown at number 5, ankle pumps. This one looks almost too simple to matter, which is exactly why people skip right past it. It is often the very first movement given to patients right after surgery, before they are even allowed out of bed, because it keeps blood from pooling while they heal. The reason it works is simple. When you flex your foot up and then point it down, your calf contracts and relaxes, and that motion squeezes the veins and gets stagnant blood around the ankle moving again. Research on this movement, including reviews pulling together data from many older adults, has found that simple ankle pumping improves lower leg blood flow and reduces swelling with no standing and no walking required. Here is how to do it. Sit in a chair with your feet flat on the floor, lift your toes up toward your shins while keeping your heels planted. Then reverse it, press your toes down and lift your heels, like you are slowly easing onto a gas pedal. Slow and controlled. That is 1 repetition. Aim for 20 to 30 of them, 2 or 3 times a day. Do it while you watch television, while you read, while you wait for the kettle to boil. It costs you nothing. Think about how much of your day you actually spend sitting. In the car, at the table, in your armchair in the evening. All of that is time your pump sits switched off while blood settles into your feet. Ankle pumps flip it back on without you even standing up. Walking relies on momentum. You fall forward and catch yourself over and over, and your calf barely gets a full squeeze out of it. Ankle pumps make the muscle genuinely contract and push. That means warmer feet, less swelling, and less strain on those fragile veins. It is also one of the safest ways to begin if pain, poor balance, or fatigue keeps you from standing very long. But ankle pumps only wake the system up. The next movement goes after the bigger muscles higher in the leg. Number 4, the seated leg lift. If you think sitting down makes this the easy one, your thighs will tell you a different story about 10 seconds in. When you straighten your leg out and hold it there, you fire the big muscles across the front of the thigh and hip, the exact muscles you rely on to stand up out of a chair, climb stairs, or catch yourself before a fall. When they contract, they press against the large veins running through the thigh and help drive blood out of the leg. Regular walking barely challenges those muscles enough to slow the loss that comes with age. This matters more than people realize. Doctors who study aging track something called gait speed, simply how fast you walk, and they treat it almost like a vital sign, right alongside pulse and blood pressure, because it predicts fall risk and independence years down the line. When walking slows down, it is often one of the earliest quiet signals that the body is losing ground. Strengthening the muscles that carry you is how you defend that ground. Here is how to do it. Sit up tall in a sturdy chair, back pressed against the seat, both feet flat on the floor. Slowly lift one leg straight out in front of you, knee as straight as is comfortable. Hold it for 2 seconds. Lower it back down slowly, without letting the foot just drop. That is 1 repetition. Do 10 to 15 on one leg, then switch sides. The detail almost everyone misses is the back staying firmly against the chair, so you cannot cheat with momentum. That is what forces the right muscles to do the actual work, and that is where the circulation benefit comes from. Once this starts feeling easy, add a light ankle weight or resistance band. Even a pound or 2 makes a real difference, and older adults very often improve faster than they expect, simply because they are starting from further back. This movement builds the strength that keeps you walking, and it moves blood through the upper leg in a way ankle pumps alone can never reach. But strong thighs will not protect you if your balance system is not firing properly. That is exactly where we go next. Number 3, the supported calf raise. This movement trains your circulation and your balance at the same time. And balance is the thing that quietly decides whether someone keeps their independence or slowly loses it. Keeping the lower body strong is repeatedly named as one of the most protective things older adults can do for their long-term mobility, for continuing to rise out of chairs, off the couch, and upstairs without needing a hand. Your calves sit right at the center of that. Every contraction squeezes those deep veins and forces blood upward against gravity. Weak calves mean blood pools, swelling climbs, and your balance reactions slow down, so an ordinary stumble is more likely to turn into an actual fall. Here is how to do it. Stand behind a sturdy chair or at a kitchen counter and rest your hands there lightly for balance. Feet about hip width apart. Rise up slowly onto the balls of your feet, lifting your heels as high as is comfortable. Pause 2 or 3 seconds at the top, eyes looking straight ahead rather than down. Lower yourself slowly, taking a full 3 seconds to come back down. That slow tempo and pause at the top is where the real work happens, because it makes your calf muscles and balance system fire together, the exact combination your body needs when catching itself mid-stumble. Start with 10 of them, building toward 20 or 25 as you get stronger. Over a few weeks, this single movement improves ankle stability, circulation, and reaction speed all at once, without pounding on your knees or hips. For many people, this is the first movement that makes them feel genuinely steady on their feet again. But standing on 2 feet is the gentle version. The next movement takes one of them away. Number 2, the single leg stance hold. Before you dismiss this as just a balance drill with nothing to do with your blood, let me give you the number that made me take it seriously. Researchers following well over 1,000 older adults for several years found that people who could not hold a simple one-legged stance for 10 seconds had a dramatically higher risk of dying over the years that followed, compared with those who could hold it. And among adults in their early 70s, fewer than half could actually pass that basic test. A 10-second balance check turned out to predict more about someone's health trajectory than almost anything else measured. You can try this right now, carefully, with a counter or sturdy chair beside you. Stand tall, one hand near something to grab, lift 1 foot an inch or 2 off the floor, and see if you can hold it steady for 10 seconds without grabbing on. That is the test, and it also happens to be the exercise. The reason it does so much for circulation comes down to time. The instant you stand on one leg, your calf, ankle, hip, and core all have to contract and keep contracting to hold you upright. That sustained squeeze keeps the pump running the entire time, pushing blood up instead of letting it settle back into the foot. Ordinary walking never asks for that. You're on one foot for a split second and then you're off it again. Standing on one leg forces the pump to stay switched on. This is where circulation and fall prevention completely overlap. When balance fades, people move less. When movement drops, blood flow slows, swelling rises, feet ache more, confidence drains, and that is the exact spiral we started with. To train it, stand next to a counter or wall, one hand resting lightly on it for safety. Shift your weight onto one leg and lift the other foot just an inch off the floor. You do not need to lift it high. Stand tall, eyes forward, and avoid curling your toes to grip the ground. Hold for 20 to 30 seconds, breathing normally, then switch legs. That is one set. Start with 2 rounds per side. As it gets easier, rest your hand more and more lightly on the counter until eventually you can hover it just above the surface without touching. The longer, steadier squeeze keeps blood moving and retrains your nerves to react faster if you trip. But balance alone does not fully restore the flow. For that, you need the single strongest version of the calf pump there is, and that is number 1. Number 1, the standing calf pump hold. This is the movement I promised you at the start. Once you understand what it is doing inside your leg, you will see exactly why vascular rehab programs lean on it more than almost anything else. It looks a lot like the calf raise from number 3, with one small difference that changes everything: the hold. You rise up onto the balls of your feet, and then you stay there. Your calves work like pressure pumps, and holding at the top keeps that pump fully squeezed long enough to actually clear out blood that has been stalling around the ankles and drive it up toward the heart. Ankle pumps wake the system up. The single leg hold trains control. This movement moves the most blood of all and keeps it moving. There is real evidence behind this, not just tradition. In studies looking at people with genuinely poor leg circulation, structured programs built around calf raise training allowed participants to walk significantly farther before pain set in, with meaningful improvements in both pain-free and total walking distance, without medication and without any equipment involved. Here is how to do it safely. Stand behind a chair or at a counter, hands resting there for balance. Feet about hip-width apart. Rise up slowly onto the balls of your feet, heels lifting as high as comfortable. Hold it for 3 to 5 seconds at the very top, breathing normally, eyes forward. Lower yourself back down slowly, about 3 seconds to come all the way down. That is 1 repetition. Start with 8 to 10 of them, working up over time to 15 or 20, always with control, never rushing. The hold is the entire point. That sustained squeeze keeps the pump fully engaged, drives blood upward, brings swelling down, and strengthens the exact muscles your body reaches for when catching itself. Because there is no jumping and no pounding involved, it is gentle enough for most people managing arthritis or shaky balance, as long as one hand stays on that counter. So let me finish Margaret's story, because this is where it all landed for her. I had her stop obsessing over her step count and instead do these 5 movements, in order, for about 12 minutes a day. Ankle pumps in her chair first thing in the morning, seated leg lifts after breakfast, supported calf raises at the counter while her coffee brewed, then the balance holds and standing calf pump holds at the end of the routine. I want to be honest about her results, because I always am. Her circulation did not turn into a 30-year-old's overnight, and I would never promise that. But within a few weeks, her ankles were not swelling by dinner anymore. Her feet were warmer at night. And the thing she said mattered most, she stopped feeling like she might tip over when she stood up off the couch. She felt steady again. For a woman who had been quietly afraid of falling, that was everything. Before you go, one honest caution, because I would rather you be safe than sorry. If you ever experience sudden, severe pain in one leg, or a leg turns pale, cold, and numb out of nowhere, or you have a sore on your foot or ankle that will not heal, do not sit at home doing exercises. Get that looked at right away, because it can mean an artery is seriously blocked, and that is an emergency. Everything in this video is meant for the slow, everyday kind of poor circulation, not for a sudden crisis like that. So there you have it, 5 movements that wake up your second heart and get blood moving back out of your legs. Quick recap. Number 5, ankle pumps, to wake the pump up. Number 4, seated leg lifts, to move blood through the thighs. Number 3, supported calf raises, for circulation and balance together. Number 2, the single leg hold, for that long, steady squeeze and the balance that keeps you upright. And number 1, the standing calf pump hold, the most powerful of them all, the one movement I would pick without hesitation if I could only choose one. Keep walking. I mean that. Walking is wonderful and I never want you to stop. But walking alone leaves a real gap, and these 5 movements are what fill it. Together they take less than 15 minutes a day. They cost you nothing, and you can do every one of them at home, in front of the television, without any equipment at all. Your circulation is one of the few things about getting older where you genuinely get a vote. This is how you cast it. Take good care of those legs. They have carried you this far, and with just a few honest minutes a day,